You know, you'd be amazed at things you find in the back of your freezer. And lucky for me, that extends all the way to organs. So we'll be working with our first piece of organ meat on this episode, which I've never done before, or even tasted before. But we'll hasten on, for we know no fear here on... So this will actually be our first time working with a piece of offal, which is a term referring to parts of an animal such as organs, intestines, or glands. But if you know anything about Hannibal, you know that it certainly won't be our last. So for our first attempt at organ, we'll be making tandoori liver using a beef liver I found in the freezer. This is especially significant because this recipe is the first dish ever we see on the show, and comes about from a terrifying realization that the killer they're looking for is in fact a cannibal.
Yeah, he's eating them.
Tandoori is a spice mix known well to the Middle East, and comes from the term tandoor, which is a kind of cylindrical clay oven that tandoori chicken is traditionally cooked in. And we're going to be serving that with a side of marmalade yogurt, and as a side dish, we'll be making the cauliflower and peas pilaf, since it has a lot of similar spices as the tandoori liver. And keeping up with the theme of using what we already have in the fridge, I'm going to be making the watermelon carpaccio as a refreshing starter. So I've been doing my fair share of research to make sure I do things just right. Many recipes involve either soaking the liver in milk or water with vinegar, which has something to do with pulling any leftover blood or impurities out of the liver and thereby improving the flavor. As far as the tandoori spice mix, you can find that at more upscale grocery stores in their ethnic food sections or at Middle Eastern markets. Or you can simply make it yourself like we'll be doing today. Since we're working with the ingredients we have right here at home, I won't be taking a trip to the grocery store. I can sense you're heartbroken about missing my shenanigans in public set to classical music. Tell you what, I promise double the shenanigans next time. So without any further ado, let's get to work. Now first let's take a look at our defrosted liver. Mine actually came sliced like this, but if it's whole, you'll need to slice it into medium thick slices like you see here. Then pile all of your liver slices in a bowl, and pour in some 2% or whole milk until just covered. Then to that, add some lemon juice to act as our vinegar and make a kind of buttermilk alternative. Give that a little stir, cover in plastic, and refrigerate for several hours. Now we're going to begin the prep work for our cauliflower and peas pilaf. So begin with a head of cauliflower, cut in half down the middle, and carve out the cores and remove. Then pull off all of your leaves and discard. Now take all of your cauliflower bushels and begin separating the harder stems from the florets. And then cut those harder stems into smaller pieces. Now pile them into a food processor and run the blade for about a minute, or until the pieces are the size of rice kernels like you see here. Now put those into their own bowl and set aside. Then repeat with the florets, which will need considerably less chopping to get the same size pieces. Only pulse about 3 to 4 times. Now add that to your bowl of stem kernels. Now this recipe calls for some ground chicken, pork, or lamb, and since I have a meat grinder attachment for the KitchenAid, I decided to ground up my own chicken. Now heat 1 tablespoon of coconut oil in a large deep skillet or Dutch oven over medium heat. Add half an onion diced and cook for a few moments. Then add your celery and garlic and fry until the onions are translucent and the celery is tender. Now we're going to scoop out our par-cooked vegetables and put them in their own bowl and set aside for just a moment. Now heat a 2nd tablespoon of coconut oil and add your ground chicken. Now to that, add a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin and a teaspoon of curry powder or smoked paprika and cook the chicken, tossing it to crumble. Then add a 1/4 cup of chopped flat leaf parsley and fry until the meat is cooked through. Now add some chopped green onions, a 1/2 cup of peas, our par-cooked vegetables, and stir to combine. Now add our cauliflower rice kernels and give that a good toss to combine everything together. Now we're going to pour in 1 cup of chicken stock. Then bring that to a boil and cover. Allow to boil for 3 to 5 minutes until the stock has reduced and the cauliflower is tender. Give that the old salt and pepper treatment, and there we have it, our cauliflower and peas pilaf. Now set that aside and keep warm until dinner. Another watermelon, I know, but for this one you're going to want to cut out the middle ring of your watermelon, so cut off both ends, leaving you a 3 to 4 inch thick ring. Now we'll cut that in half and carefully slide our knife around the edges to remove the rind, which you may have to do with a little brute force. Cut that piece in half again so we have these fat pink blocks. Now carefully cut thin slices of the watermelon, just like you're carving from a big slab of tuna. For my presentation here, I made a large communal salad by arranging the watermelon slices in an overlapping wreath. Now go pick some fresh arugula from the garden and give it a good wash, and then pile it nicely in the middle of your wreath. Now arrange some nice big chunks of feta all around. And give the whole thing a healthy drizzle of olive oil and a loving sprinkle of honey. Now decorate with some fresh sprigs of mint, and I decided to add a nice healthy handful of pistachios to the middle. Now we're going to keep that cold and covered until we're ready for dinner. For our marmalade yogurt dressing, begin with a half a cup of yogurt, a tablespoon of lime juice, and 2 tablespoons of orange marmalade. Now give that just a little bit of a voulez-vous coucher avec moi, if you will, and there we have it, our marmalade yogurt. Now a common side dish to liver is some fried bacon bits, so we'll start with a pound of bacon, and lining the pieces up, cut the strips in half, then cut them lengthwise, then turn and slice again, giving you some raw bacon pieces. This method is far easier for me than cooking bacon strips whole and crumbling afterwards. Put your bacon in a cast iron skillet over medium-high heat, and cook your bacon down, stirring it to keep the pieces from sticking to the bottom of the pan. Keep cooking until you see the fat begin to melt and bubble, and eventually the pieces will fry in their own fat and begin to take on a dark, rich red color. Yeah. Drain the bacon in a bowl lined with paper towels and set aside until dinner. Now let's take a look at our liver and see what we've got here. As you can see, the pieces are a lot lighter in tint, and the milk has a slight blood color to it, so it clearly pulled out something. Rinse off the pieces in some cool water and lay them out to dry on some paper towels. Now we're going to make our tandoori spice mix. Rapid fire, ready? 2 tablespoons of paprika, a tablespoon of smoked paprika, a tablespoon of turmeric, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of nutmeg, a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, a teaspoon of ground ginger, a teaspoon of coriander, a teaspoon of cumin, a teaspoon of ground cloves, a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of ground pepper, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Phew! Now let everybody mingle at the party, and there we have it, our tandoori spice mix. Now we'll take our liver pieces and give them a dredging in the spice. Then we'll heat up a tablespoon of butter over medium heat, swirling to get the butter all around, and add our liver pieces, frying for just about 1 minute. Then turn them over with a fork and fry for another 1 to 2 minutes until the pieces are medium rare. Now remove them from the pan and set aside while you fry up the rest of your pieces. Make sure you wipe out the pan with a paper towel to keep any leftover spices from burning in the pan. Now that our liver is all done and all of our sides are anxiously waiting, we are ready for dinner.
eating them.
Another 4 recipes down, only 124 to go. So we've done it, our first organ ever. Woo-hoo! What a weird thing to be celebrating. I wasn't quite sure what I would make of this, but it surpassed all my wildest expectations. The liver was smooth and tender, creamy and yet a little bit gamey, and the spice mix was a whole cavalcade of flavors from spicy to savory to sweet. The marmalade yogurt was the perfect addition to cool down the spice and add just a little fruity tang. The biggest hit at dinner, however, was the cauliflower and peas pilaf, which everybody had multiple plates of, myself including. The chicken, the vegetables, and the riced cauliflower were also tender and savory, with just the right amount of spice. The watermelon carpaccio is actually similar to a salad I've made before, but this is even better. The arugula was the perfect pairing with the refreshing sweet watermelon, and the addition of the pistachios to keep the whole thing very Mediterranean was a good call, if I do say so myself. And I did say so myself. So that's it for this episode of Hannibal and I. I'm Cody Marchikaitis. Remember always to stay courteous, and I will see you in the kitchen next time. Blue, 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 ducky.